Welcome back down to ice level. It is Frozen 4 week. I'm so excited to bring you this preview from all four teams. We have two reporters joining us today. We have Jay McNally and Jacob Cheris, both friends of the show. I am super excited to get into the content. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get this Frozen 4 preview started. Today I'm here joined by longtime friend of the show, Jacob Cheris, and second time appearance here on Ice Level, Jane McNally. It's time for the Frozen 4. Our bracket is set. We've got North Dakota taking on Wisconsin, Denver taking on Michigan. It's a super exciting time to be going out to Vegas. Are you excited or what?
Yeah.
Pumped.
Jane's going out to Vegas. I'm just going to be staying here. So that should be fun.
No, it'll be great.
Let's start in the Albany region. They beat Bentley in the first round. They beat Duluth in the second round with fellow Hobie Baker candidate Max Plant on the ice going up against TJ Hughes. Michigan, that smothering offense. We saw them score that extra 4 against Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship. You know they can score goals at any time when they need them. They also have that strong goaltending in the back, Jack Ivankovic, first class of those CHL players, really starting strong as a freshman goalie. Guys, what do you think of this team?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of Michigan compared to where they were a season ago, where they were on the bubble, they lost to Penn State in the Big Ten quarterfinals, and they missed the tournament for the first time in, I forget how many years it was, but, you know, it was a long time before they made it, and then when they missed it, and they just have completely revamped their team, and along with returning guys like TJ Hughes, Michael Haig, and you've also had young guys step up and be impact players like Adam Valentini has been really good. Will Horkoff in his first full season with Michigan. Jaden Perron, a guy who didn't really fit in North Dakota and has really taken his game to a whole new level at Michigan. And I think the big difference for them this year has been their goaltending. You know, they're two freshman guys. Obviously, one of them is carrying the load in Ivan Kovic. And goaltending was really the biggest issue for Michigan last year. Look, this is a really good team. They're fast. They could defend really well. They obviously have goaltending. Like, this Frozen 4, I would say, Wisconsin definitely snuck in off of, credit to them for coming back in that game. But this Frozen 4, I would say 3 out of the 4 teams are juggernauts and are so well built. But going back to Michigan, I think just all around, they're just a really all-around solid team. They've been able to revamp. They have good scoring depth. They've got defense, and, like I said, I don't know, I'm kind of repeating myself, but, they played well. They had to fend off a Duluth comeback, which was definitely a bit of a scare for some Wolverine fans out there. But, no, I like this team where they're at right now, and I definitely think they're going to give Denver a run for their money.
Yeah, I think Jacob kind of hit the nail on the head there. When you look at just the sheer amount of offense that they bring, it's really hard to pick against them. And then, of course, you have Ivan Kovic in the back, as you both have touched on. But I think Duluth definitely did give them a scare in that regional final game and showed some holes in a relatively young team, and whether they are able to kind of hold on for that full game. I think they're going up against a team that has time and time again proven their worth in the NCAA tournament and in the Frozen 4. But I mean, just with how dominant Michigan has been all year in such a tough conference as well, it's definitely hard to pick against them.
And I'd also like to add, you've had other guys step on. I forgot to mention one guy, Nick Moldenhauer's having himself a career year. A guy who only had 10 points in 29 games last year. He's shattered his career highs, 15, 16, 31 in 39 games this year. He's been a really, really good story. I know Brandon Dorado speaks very highly of him, of just his ability. He really put in the work in the off season, didn't pout or do anything like that. Like, he's been such a great story for them, and so I just wanted to throw that out there, that Moldenhauer has been a huge piece to their success this postseason.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to forget because it's almost like they've bounced back so well. Will Whitelaw was an extremely clutch player for the Wolverines last year,
Yeah.
and they're playing like, he wasn't even a factor in this lineup. He's scoring the clutch goals for Western Michigan. He did during that season, but they've seamlessly been able to find that production from other parts of their lineup.
Yeah, I think their depth is huge. Just you look at every line, every D pair, and there's a threat there. But yeah, like you said, they've definitely been able to kind of replace that with just sheer goal scorers on their end. But yeah, the offense is the story with Michigan for sure.
Yeah, you talked about getting a little scare against Duluth. There's another NCHC team out there that could certainly scare them, and that would be their opponents, the Denver Pioneers, champions of the NCHC tournament, second place in the regular season in a super tight race down to the end against North Dakota, who we'll touch on later. But the Pioneers looking to start a dynasty here. David Carl looking for his third championship in just 6 seasons. He seems to have found some of those quality pieces that bring him to the promised land. He's found the production in Eric Polkamp to be that dynamic defenseman that Zeev Bullion has been in the past. He's got this crazy freshman goaltender who, as of recording, has not lost a game for the Pioneers. Johnny Hicks, a freshman coming in mid-season and absolutely tearing it up in the Mile High City. Jane, you were out in Loveland to see the Pioneers take home that regional trophy. What did you see from them?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked about how Michigan's a hard team to pick against. I think when the calendar turns to April, it's very hard to go against Denver. Year in and year out, it doesn't matter that they're a pretty young team, relatively speaking, like a lot of these teams are. They just ran the table in Loveland. When you looked at that region, it was going to be you thought it would be a low-scoring region, pretty tough. Like, whoever came out of that was going to be pretty battle-tested. And Denver didn't really skip a beat. I mean, 5-0 in the semifinal over Cornell, and 6-2, I believe, was the final against Western. I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with, just from the bottom up. I mean, when you have a guy like Johnny Hicks, he's small, but he sees everything. He's got crazy reflexes. I think he's only allowed more than 2 goals once, and it was in that NCHC championship game. He's been unreal for them. You've got guys like Polkamp and Boston Buckberger. And just one thing I noticed with Denver, it was definitely apparent in their semifinal win over Cornell. Just 3 of their 5 goals came off of deflections. I think they've got almost 40 goals from defensemen, which is pretty unheard of. And I'm sure if you compare that figure to other teams, they will pale in comparison to Denver's D-core. They just shoot a lot from the back. They get great deflections in front. They lean on their depth. They lean on their defensive core, but they have clearly been generating offense from that. So with Denver, of course, you touched on David Carl, just how strong this team has been coming into the tournament. I also just think, I mean, they're unbeaten in their last 14 or 15 it is now. I mean, sometimes it just takes the hottest team will be there to take it all. So I think Denver, and especially up against Michigan, I think this is going to be, I mean, they will both be great semifinal games, but this is going to be a really great one to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it now. 15 unbeaten. They have not lost a game since January 23rd. That was against St. Cloud. And then they ended up bouncing back with the 6-0 win. I think what separates Denver from these teams is just how structured they are. Like, they're so disciplined in the neutral zone, too. Like, you hear, I remember John Buccigross talking about this all the time in the 2024 National Championship, that 1-2-2, where they try and, it's kind of a trap system, and they do it so well. Kind of similar to, another team I watch more frequently, like, Ohio State, where they're just so disciplined and so sound, and everyone kind of knows what they're doing as a five-man unit. Having one offensive defenseman always helps your team. When you have a guy like Boston Buckberger who can also put the puck in the back of the net and produce points, that makes your team so much more dangerous. I remember it was Pat McNally told me this. He said, look, teams don't win unless you have an offensive defenseman. And sure enough, with Denver, they have two. So there's obviously, like Jane touched on a lot of it. Hicks is playing extremely well. You've got Polkamp. It's going to be such a good game against Michigan, and I could really see either one of these teams coming away with it. And you know what, for Denver, like, we've also seen them contain high octane offensive teams in the past, particularly Boston College when they had the Smith, Perreault, Leonard line. And then last year it was Perreault, Hagens, and Leonard. So I'm very, very curious to see, is Michigan's transition offense going to be too much for Denver, or is Denver really going to hem in on the neutral zone? And granted, you know what, Michigan is really good in the neutral zone in its own right too. But that's really going to determine the outcome of this game. Is if Denver plays to its structure and causes Michigan fits in transition, Denver's probably going to pull away with this one.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up that 24 national championship. I was thinking the same thing. I'm pretty sure they beat BU in the semifinal, and that was like the Macklin Celebrini year. That was a crazy BU team. And then they beat BC in the championship with Smith, Perreault, Leonard, Jacob Fowler, and net. Like, I think it could be a very similar story this year where you're going up against these big name guys. Of course, Michigan's a different team, but it definitely, there could be some parallels there for sure.
Yeah, another parallel I'm seeing is back in 2023. A short goaltender taking down a star-studded team, Yaniv Peretz in Quinnipiac against Minnesota. They play a very disciplined game in Hamden. They always have, and so long as Rand Pecknold is there, they always will. But the last time the Bobcats were in the Frozen Four before 2023 was 2016 against North Dakota, with yet again a rookie head coach, which brings us to the Fighting Hawks, the champions of the Sioux Falls region, the regular season champions of the NCHC, rolled through their region against Quinnipiac in the final especially. I mean, that was a dominant performance against the Bobcats. They can score goals out the freaking wazoo. That team is just one of the most dynamic offenses I think I have ever watched in hockey. They have the defense to back it up, but they play just so high possession that you don't even think about the defense that much because they're just smothering you in the offensive zone. Now, I do have to bring up Jan Spunar, who has over 2 games of straight shutouts going right now, which, knock on wood for all you Hawks fans, for you, I'm sure you would hope it would continue, but let me not announcers jinx you here. But, this team is just built on goal scoring. Jacob, you were there to watch them in person. What do you think?
Boy, when I watched this team, I didn't catch a lot of the first half of the UND Merrimack game because I was finishing up my story from the Quinnipiac Providence game. But when I saw North Dakota play Quinnipiac in the regional final, I'm like, okay, I don't see how any team can stop the Fighting Hawks. They are I, in my opinion, there's a lot of like, we were talking about Michigan, how they were so well built. In my opinion, North Dakota is the most complete team in the country. I do not even think it's a contest. They could roll 4 lines, they could roll 3 D pairs, and they have a stud goalie. They, like, the way they played against Quinnipiac, that was one of the greatest 60-minute efforts from top to bottom that I have seen in a long time. The way that all 4 lines were just in sync was incredible, and a perfect example of this was Ben Strinden. I forget which goal this was, but I remember he found, it was North Dakota's top line with James, Strinden, and Zellers, I believe. And Strinden was behind the goal line. He fed a spin-around pass right to Dylan James's tape, and he scored. Actually, that was Will Zellers. I'm looking at the box score right now. That was Will Zellers and Elias Rockwood, who had the assist on that goal. And their third line was really the difference. Cody Krall, Jack Kernan, who scored twice in the final against Quinnipiac, and Tyler Young, funny enough, transferred from Merrimack, so he was playing against his former team. And Jan Spoonar delivered an all-time quote in the media room, asked by Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald. He said, Jan, are you just excited to go, to Vegas? And Jan goes, I've never been to Vegas, not a big gambler. And all of us were cracking up in the press box, or in the press room. It was great. So, I mean, I look at North Dakota and I just see an absolute juggernaut. They're going to be my pick to win the national championship. They have been my pick to win the national championship since the field was released, and getting to see them in person. First Frozen Four appearance since in over a decade, when they beat Quinnipiac in the 2016 national championship. That team was really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't get to watch so much as I was traveling both those days, but I mean, I think we should touch on it, just the nature of all 4 starting goaltenders in the Frozen Four being freshmen. Spoonar has been so good. I mean, shutting out at regionals is just unheard of. The fact that and it's a testament to him, it's a testament to the North Dakota structure, their defense, they have been dominant. And I feel like we're kind of saying the same thing about all these teams, and it's going to make for a great Frozen Four just with how strong everyone is. But I think the fact that they were able to keep a clean sheet that entire time is so impressive, and should bode them very well heading into the semifinal against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, if you somehow made it almost 20 minutes into this show so far, and you've never seen a Frozen Four so far, now is the time to start watching, because we'll say it 1,000 times more on this show because it's so relevant. These are 4 of the most fun teams that you could possibly watch in the country. And I also want to I want to give props to Dane Jackson taking over as a rookie head coach. We said the last time North Dakota made it to the Frozen Four was in 2016 with a rookie head coach. He was an assistant under Brad Berry, who was actually an assistant under Dave Haxtell. Dave Haxtell had just left for the NHL in that 2016 season. Dane Jackson has been running this power play since probably around 2005, and giving him the keys to a team with such a high-powered offense has just led to this explosion of creativity and of barn-burning goals and of the most exciting North Dakota hockey that these fans have seen probably in a decade.
Yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the head. And even Quinnipiac had some pretty high-quality scoring chances. I forget, it was a 2-on-1. James, you might have a better memory than me, right? Didn't Quinnipiac have a 2-on-1? Spoonar sprawled across, or was it a breakaway?
I think so. If it did happen, we'll pull it up right now in the video.
Yeah.
Scraped off the wall by Marcellus, who has been good in this period. The right spot. He's in. Looking back for Marcellus. Waits, fires. Oh, what a save from Spoonar.
I hit him. Yeah. I shot him with that and I got it. I swear to God.
I do remember he denied someone on the breakaway. It may have been against Providence, but I'm pretty sure it was against Quinnipiac. And so, like, even when he wasn't facing a ton of high danger chances, he was still there to make the save, which, it's hard to do when you're constantly facing perimeter shot after perimeter shot after perimeter shot, because that's how Quinnipiac, got most of its shots on goal in that game. They were all from the perimeter. They didn't get to the interior. They couldn't get to the interior, and North Dakota owned them in that area. So, I don't think North Dakota will have a tough time getting past Wisconsin, just because Wisconsin's kind of like that Cinderella team, kind of not as like Cinderella, say, at Penn State last year, where they got hot down the stretch. But 2 goals in the last 5 minutes to tie it, and win a crazy game in overtime. But you look at North Dakota with the experience that they have and just how well built they are. I know we're kind of, hitting a broken record right now, but it's true. Spoonar's great, their defense is great, and their forwards are great.
All right, I think it's time we move on to talk about something else, because people might be getting tired of us, praising North Dakota, but it is true that their opponents, the Wisconsin Badgers, are going to have a tough time facing them. Now, it's not like Mike Hastings hasn't been before. This is the second team he has taken to the Frozen Four in 2 schools. He previously took Minnesota State to the Frozen Four, losing to David Carl's Denver when he was there in Boston. Now, Hastings has the experience. Wisconsin also has some players on that roster who've been around for a bit, haven't really won a conference championship, haven't made it out of the regionals. They faced heartbreak in the 2024 against Quinnipiac with that overtime winner. That was a great roster that year. They kind of slowed down last year, and they're picking up where Wisconsin hockey basically should be right now, and are back in the Frozen Four with, a guy like Quinn Finley, who's just waiting to get a chance to show off his talents after what he did in the Spengler Cup against high-level competition.
Yeah, I was really happy when Wisconsin pulled it off, because every time I talk to Mike Hastings for a story, he's always so great. He's a hard coach to play for, but I bet he's as down to earth as they come. He's very well spoken. You mentioned Finley. Hastings was talking about, I think sometime last week, that he's been going through lots of ups and downs, and there was a time where the puck was just not going into the net from him. He didn't score in 6 straight games from January 15th to January 31st, and Wisconsin went on a 6-game, losing streak. And, I'm sure that took a bit of a toll on him, but Finley's ability to really buy into becoming a complete 200-foot player is something that Hastings has harped upon over this recent stretch. And now he was getting rewarded. He had a 3-point night against Dartmouth. He scored against Michigan State. He's been playing in all sort of situations. Like, one of the things that he didn't do last year that he has been doing this year is being on the penalty kill. So that just speaks to him as a player, and what he's due for a big postseason. Really, like, if you look at Wisconsin, you have a lot of guys that have been, inconsistent at times, but that's also kind of the same with the team at times. Like, they were at the top of the nation for so long, and then, they deal with some, pretty big injuries. Hensler's knocked out for the year. Scholes is knocked out for the year. Morrissey misses a couple of games. Vasily Zelenov, who's their third-line center, an important piece to them. He misses a few games. So a lot of it was injuries, but Hastings, like said the other day, no one cares how many injuries that you're dealing with. Credit to the leadership group a lot, and I feel like it was very appropriate for a guy like Ben Dexheimer, who was a freshman in Tony Granato's last season as head coach. And whenever there's a coaching change, sometimes guys leave for the portal. And Dexheimer was one who stayed, and he got the game-winning goal. He's having a great year of his own, and he's really kept the room together. So, Wisconsin really has been kind of a Cinderella, even though they were one of the top teams in the nation for most of the season. It's just, you hit a rut, you get a way out of it, and especially because they were embarrassed on home ice against Ohio State in the quarterfinals, and they were scoreboard watching at point. Like there could have been a nightmare scenario where they would be on the outside looking in, and then when when Dartmouth won the ECAC championship, Wisconsin got in, and once you get in, anything could happen, and now they're one of 4 teams standing.
I think what I think about with Wisconsin is we talk about how they'll have their hands full with a team like North Dakota that's structure, has experience. Well, look at the team that Wisconsin just beat to get to the Frozen Four. That Michigan State team, heartbreaking last year's regional semifinal to Cornell, have to mention. And then this year, you think they bring back almost all their pieces. Obviously, no Isaac Howard, but Trey Augustine, just all those guys. That team was stacked all year, and then Wisconsin's able to pull it out to get to the Frozen Four. Obviously, North Dakota's a different beast, obviously, and a team they're not quite as familiar with just the nature of it being an out-of-conference game. But, I mean, when you take down a team like Michigan State, and you don't know whether Wisconsin is going to embrace that underdog mentality, because they are an underdog. Whether they want to roll with that or not is their choice. But I think there's something to be said about that mentality where it's like, all right, well, we just beat these 2 great teams, so why not keep it going? The Badgers have been a great story so far. But I think that win against Michigan State is a character win, and something that obviously don't want to dwell on too much and ride the high of that too much, but I think worth noting heading into the Frozen Four.
Yeah, one thing I found out was that Wisconsin was 0-9-1 when trailing after 2 periods. So that win against Michigan State was the first time that they won a game, or 0-10-1, I should say, was the first time that they won a game when trailing after 2 periods.
Pretty good time for it.
Yeah, no, really good time for it. And that's been the difference, these third period surges. They had a 4-goal third period against Dartmouth, and that's why they won the game. And that's the kind of desperation, kind of last-minute hockey that you need at this time of the year, which is why, you never know what to expect. I mean, the odds aren't in Wisconsin's favor, but with the way that they've just been able to grind teams down, and, look, they were outplaying Michigan State pretty much that entire third period. I think the shots were like 16-6 in the third period. So it was only a matter of time before they bury one. And they just happened to bury 2. They were able to get traffic in front of Augustine. And that's kind of how that goal went in. It was kind of a crazy kind of deflection. It was crazy. I was in the press box. I think warm-ups were getting underway with the UND Quinnipiac game, and someone in the press box said, like, Wisconsin just tied it. I'm like, what? Like, there's no way that Wisconsin tied it, and then they won. And that was certainly something. It's going to depend really on what kind of version of Daniel Hauser do we get? Because sometimes he's been really, really good, and at times where he's been kind of struggling. He's on the shorter side of goalies, and one of the goals against Michigan State he probably would have liked to have back. So he has a lot of pressure on him. If he can live up to what he's been doing for most of the year and be that athletic kind of goaltender that Wisconsin is used to seeing, they'll be in good shape. If not, they're going to definitely have their hands full.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about that net front presence. That's going to be super important to get up against a guy like Jan Spunar, who hasn't let in a goal in over 2 hours of real time. Getting that net front presence is probably the best way that you're going to be able to break that kind of streak, that kind of zone that a guy gets into, especially in the postseason.
And one guy who kind of epitomizes that role of getting to the dirty areas is Simon Tassi, and he has had a bounce-back year after, a down year is putting it lightly. He had 28 points in 40 games in his first year at Wisconsin, and then he had 11 points in 31 games, and now he has 22 in 37. This kid is, I call him the X factor of this team, because when he scores these big goals and when he's playing well, they're a much harder team to play against. And that was what was missing, along with the secondary scoring and just that kind of lack of physicality was what was missing from Wisconsin last year. And you know what, Tassi was playing through some injuries last year, and then they decided to keep him out for a long time, and then he got back to playing a little bit better, but certainly not to the level that he's capable of. He scored 2 goals against Dartmouth. Didn't record a point against Michigan State, but he's a guy that can come up in big situations. He's a guy that loves going to the front of the net, loves stirring the pot. You mentioned the net front presence and getting to Spunar. I think he can be the guy to do it. Obviously, you have that top line with Finley, Morrissey, and Fitzgerald. Oliver Tolk has had a really good freshman year. Luke Osborne has really, really stepped up. Like we talked about offensive defensemen, and teams need to win that and need to have those guys. You mentioned Denver having 2 guys, and Buckburner and Polkamp. Wisconsin has Dexheimer and Osborne, who has really, really stepped up.
All right. I will also be the first to admit, as someone that is paid and employed by the Dan K Show to cover this sport, I had Michigan State winning it all. So let me just say how important that is for Wisconsin to pull off a win, for, someone like me to actually pick them to go to the national championship. I'll stop tooting my own horn here and just admit that I was wrong. But
I think I had them losing to UND. I can't remember. I know I had them going to the Frozen Four.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a tough team to stop, and to be honest, I did not really see Wisconsin becoming this team, but you got hot at the right time and you can win a national championship. Yep. And there are quite a few hot teams in this bracket. We're going to close out our show with who do you each think is going to take it home for the first time ever in Las Vegas.
Jane, you could do the honors if you want.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've thought long and hard about this. If we go semifinal by semifinal, we got North Dakota over Wisconsin. And I'm going to go with Denver over Michigan. And I'm going to pick Denver to win the national championship. Maybe it's just the bias of seeing them in person, seeing how they controlled Cornell, controlled Western Michigan, the defending national champion. I think, we just mentioned it, getting hot at the right time, peaking at the right time. It just seems like it's hard to find a flaw with this Denver team. Just when you look at their defense, they can win a 1-0 game and they can win a 5-0 game. There's just something about this team that it really, and just Denver in April, it's really hard to pick against them. So it's tough. If does wind up being Denver versus UND, I think that is going to be an incredible game, especially on this stage. But I'm going to go with Denver.
Yeah. I have North Dakota over Wisconsin. And then I have Michigan beating Denver. Conference pride, I guess you could say. And then I have North Dakota winning the national championship. Kind of similar to Jane of like, kind of a bias kind of thing where you just see these teams and they're so well built. I mean, regardless, I would honestly love to see a North Dakota-Denver national championship. That would be such a toss-up. And that would be great because obviously last year wasn't even close and it kind of stunk a little bit. So yeah, I think I've had North Dakota winning the national championship since the bracket was released, and I'm going to stick with them. But I have them beating Michigan in the national championship.
Let's see, how do I break the tie? I'll start by saying I can't pick against the NCHC, especially as a conference, come this time of year with the amount of championships they've won since it formed. I have North Dakota and Denver in the national championship, but without a bias for seeing either of the teams, I'm going to have to go with North Dakota because I can't see them losing. Like, I try as hard as I can to imagine it, and I literally just cannot see them losing with the depth they have in their roster, with the dynamic players that they have on their team, the speed, the coaching. I mean, Denver has been just phenomenal down the line this whole year, but I feel like North Dakota just has something a little bit extra, and I think that little bit extra could be not having won a national championship in such a long time. It could be that little extra motivation from the fans, from the history, from all of that.
I think if it winds up being UND Denver, like flip a coin, it can be anyone's game, anyone's day. That would be an awesome game to see, especially in Vegas on a big stage like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd have to agree with that. I honestly prefer Denver to beat Michigan. I mean, I'm not going to change my prediction just because I've watched Michigan a lot. They don't really fold a lot. Not saying Denver does fold because obviously they're one of the best teams and most well-built teams in the country, but you could literally, like I said at the top of the show, like three out of these four teams are legitimate contenders and are just so dynamic and well built. Like they have 200-foot players everywhere. So I think it's going to be a great Frozen Four in Sin City, and it should be fun.
Yeah, and for all you Badger fans, that is not Wisconsin slander.
No.
These teams are just that good. Many of you may have not watched some of the teams outside of your conference, but trust me, you're going to want to. Guys, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Where can everybody find you?
So I'm on Twitter at jcheris17. I also run a Penn State hockey recruiting page, which has gotten a lot of traction over these past 2 years, especially with some kid who is talked about too much these days on ESPN.
I don't even want to mention his name because it feels like it feels like a corporate buzzword.
We haven't mentioned him once.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to talk about that.
Well, he's not a Hobie finalist either, so it doesn't really feel relevant to mention him if he's not going to be there.
Color me shocked that he's not a Hobie finalist. Coming from a Penn State alum, and also my full-time job, I'm a sports writer at the Dickinson Press. So I'm not really active on my personal social media that much nowadays. I was tweeting a lot because as we're recording this, the Capitals, I think the game just ended. They lost 7-1 to the Rangers, and now their playoff hopes are probably done. So, are you a Rangers fan?
No, I'm an Islanders fan.
Yeah.
I'm a Rangers fan, so I was having fun with that earlier.
I just like seeing the Metro burn.
Yeah.
Well, for me, you can find me on Twitter. It's at Jane McNally _. Still, obviously, write about Cornell hockey. We'll probably get some more stories before my time's done there, but at the Cornell Daily Sun. But I'll be in Las Vegas this weekend covering the Frozen Four for college hockey news, so you can check out any and all stories I do there. But I'm pretty active on my Twitter.
All right, thanks so much. Let's close this out. That's all for this week on Ice Level. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to watch all of the games this weekend. Be sure to be on the lookout for all the postseason content. If you liked it, leave a like on the video. If you'd like us to do something different or talk about something in the next episode, leave a comment. Subscribe to our channels. Follow us on social media. Check out our website at thedankshow.com. Check out Jane's content with college hockey news covering the Frozen Four. Check out Jacob's content. He's got some postseason content coming up, so be sure to be on the lookout. And be on the lookout for next week's episode, our national championship season finale. It has been an awesome season so far, and I can't wait to wrap it up with all of you. For now, I'm James Blennau, and we're not experts, but it takes fans to grow the game.